Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to have back on the show Max Brooks, best-selling author of books like World War Z, which became a hit film, The Zombie Survival Guide, Health Fighters. He wrote for Saturday Night Live. He's a senior fellow with the Scowcroft Center for Strategy and Security Arts of the Future Project, and a lot more. He's also featured in a brand new documentary on HBO, two-part one, called Mel Brooks, the 99-year-old man. Judd Apatow and Michael Bonfilio are the co-directors of it. And Mel Brooks is his dad. He's 99. He's going to be 100 in June. God bless the guy. Nice to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, Dino. Yeah, it's amazing. The man is going to be 100 years old. He's in great health. He's sharp as a tack. It's pretty amazing. There's some good genes in there.
Yeah, it is remarkable. And what's remarkable about your dad is that the history of a modern day comedy comes through him and a lot of his peers. I mean, Sid Caesar and the Show of Shows was really a precursor to Saturday Night Live and so many other shows when you go back and look at it. So, I mean, when your dad looks at this, does he take that in and look at the sense of like, well, I really did have a huge contribution to American comedy?
Well, you know, his attitude is he never looks back. He always looks forward. It's why he never wanted a Lifetime Achievement Award, because he always saw it as his life was over.
Interesting.
So he was always like, no, we're not celebrating my work yet. You do that when I'm dead. But he finally surrendered and is allowing the Lifetime Achievement Awards to come in. But I thought Apatow did a great job. He really showed a deep, appreciation and respect for the work. And like you said, if you're a fan of American comedy, which is a great contribution to the world, he was there. My dad was there.
Yeah, I mean, the writing team at the Show of Shows with Neil Simon and Larry Gelbart, who goes on to create MASH, and your dad and others, is just unbelievable. When you think about, I can't even remember I can't even imagine what the writer's room was like, because your dad's always a funny guy, and some of the writers are quiet people. So I imagine that was kind of interesting, the dynamic as well for him.
You know, he writes in a very different way than some other writers. Like, I always have to be alone. Like, this is where I write and it's just me. But for him, that would be a death sentence. He's really an entertainer more than so even when he writes, he has to entertain. So he needs a writer's room. He needs the immediate feedback. Does this work? Is it not? Are you laughing? Are you not? Even when he wrote things on his own, he never purposefully didn't teach himself to type. So he would always have a typist.
Wow.
So, and he did that on purpose. It's like, so that way he would always have someone to bounce off feedback. It's like he wrote all the music for the producers and Young Frankenstein. He's been writing songs his whole life, but he never taught himself to play the piano. So he could always bring someone in to play the piano for him. And then he could say, is it working? What do you think? Let's go back and forth. So he's a deeply, deeply social person.
You know, also in this two-part documentary, you learn a lot about your dad's life, pre being famous. His father died when he was 2 years old. It's kind of remarkable. His mom raised him and his brothers. And how did he make it? So if people have not seen it, how did your dad go from, being raised by a single mom in Brooklyn, if I remember correctly, and then to one of the biggest stars in all of American comedy?
You know, he had to do it. And it was also a time that let him do it. And it was also because show business was not a reputable career choice, right? Like, let's be honest, when you and I were at SNL, there were some of those writers who, had they grown up in the 50s and said to their parents, like, I'm going to go be a television writer, they've been like, well, absolutely not. I'm not going to pay gobs of money, send you to school so you can be in some Jew room. And those guys would have gone and worked for General Motors, and they would have been the funniest guy in the General Motors meeting. But back in the day when my dad was starting, there was a real taboo. You did not go into show business. So therefore, the people who did had this incredible burning desire that they could not do anything else, and they were relentless. And that was my dad.
Right.
And also in his neighborhood, there were some very famous people like Buddy Rich, the greatest drummer ever lived, taught him how to play drums. So he started as a drummer in the Catskills. And then starting as a drummer in the band, he then, would be in shows and try out jokes. And he was like, this is what I got to do, or else I will die.
It was clearly for him a calling. And for others who go into the arts. I mean, for some people, you talk to them, this is all I could do. That's it. I want to do this.
Yeah.
I might have some other skill set. I thought it was very honest in the documentary that your dad went through some difficult times. He had success early and then leaves a show of shows. He's not creating anything. He talks about going to therapy and took a toll on his first marriage a great deal. And I mean, how did he, if you could share with people, how did he come out of that? Like, and what did he take from that?
Well, he came out of it really because of my mom. Because my mom, she saw him when he was over. He was a has-been. But he had nerve, and she appreciated that nerve because she was at the top of her game. She was one of the biggest actresses in the world, and men were terrified of her, and he was not. So his gusto, his chutzpah to be able to say like, hey, Anne Bancroft, I'm Mel Brooks. And so pursuing her, he won her over. And then getting to know him, she's like, there's a lot here. And so when he didn't have a pot to piss in, she supported him because she knew. She's like, he is coming into, he's just starting. Whereas other people around him were like, Mel Brooks is over. She was like, oh no, this guy is just beginning. So she pushed him to be what he became in his second act, which was Mel Brooks, the movie maker.
That's kind of remarkable because Max's mother is Anne Bancroft, obviously a very, very famous actress. And it's interesting in the documentary, it talks about Mel Brooks sees her and yells, hey, Anne, I'm Mel Brooks. And she's like, who? And it was like sort of a joke. And then he would follow her around and finally wooed her into being together. And then I think, was it Get Smart, the first thing that was like a break after they were together? Or was that after that?
Get Smart was the first break. But he didn't have the patience to be a TV showrunner. So he and Buck Henry created the show and created the characters and really sort of set the stage. And then he walked away because he's like, I'm not that guy. I can't just go in every day and be grinding it out. So he went and did the producers instead, which everyone loved in the business, but it was not a commercial success.
Right.
And then he did 12 Chairs once again, like a little art house film, not a commercial success. And then he was asked to punch up someone else's script, Tex X, about a black sheriff in the West. And he's like, I don't do other people's work. I do my own thing. And then my mother told him, I'm pregnant. And he was like, oh crap, I have to really start earning a living. So he jumped into Blazing Saddles.
Right, and that becomes Blazing Saddles. I thought it was interesting. I think in the documentary a moment where he's asked about the producer. He goes, oh, you're going to meet this great guy, Gene Wilder, who's really a great actor. Because he started, and it's like, he was really unknown and he had this lead role in this movie. I mean, he must have been known for something, but I thought that was remarkable. And I know that you mentioned that Gene Wilder was like your uncle through life. They worked together a lot. But for your dad to take a chance on Gene Wilder then, and you see this level of talent in him, like, how come he wasn't even famous before that? It was kind of remarkable.
My dad always did that. He always had this, for a guy with plenty of ego for himself, somehow he also had the ability to spot talent in other people. Flash forward 30 years or 20 something years, and I'm in college and I'm abroad. And I remember talking to him on the phone and I'm like, oh, because he was doing this new movie called Robin Hood Men in Tights. And he was really after this comedian, Eddie Griffin. And I said, oh, how'd it go with Eddie Griffin? Did you get him? He goes, no, we couldn't get him because his tour dates, his scheduling, it didn't line up. And he goes, I think we're going to get a lucky break though. He said, I've been studying this kid. He's just doing the clubs. He's really young. His name is Dave Chappelle. He said, I think that kid's really got something, and I'm going to take a chance on him, and I want to put him in this movie.
That's remarkable, and that comes out in the documentary because Dave Chappelle is one of the people interviewed, and when you see the clips of him from the movie Robin Hood Men in Tights, he was so young. He was a teenager. Young. Oh my gosh! You're like, and I'm chatting with Max Brooks about a great documentary about his dad, Mel Brooks. Obviously your mom is featured in the documentary a lot, Anne Bancroft. I'm just curious. I mean, there was pictures of you as a kid. We got to see you, me and Hen knows Max, Max knows Hen. To see you as a child, like there's Max as a child, like
I
an
know.
8-year-old or a 10-year-old. Like it was kind of funny. I'm like, it was a documentary about Max as well as Mel, and a lot
Uh,
of love there. But what was it like growing up with two parents who they're your parents, but you have to share them with the world on some level?
it wasn't easy. It really was not easy. We could never have dinner in public.
Ah,
We couldn't just like, we used to do this tradition where every Sunday we go out to dinner and then we go see a movie.
mhm.
And the problem was every time we go out to dinner, people would always stop by the table. And it really bothered me. I was like, Mom, and my mom was like, look, we can't go anywhere. We're kind of prisoners of our faces. And that's what my mom always said, better to
Ah,
have a famous name than a famous face. You have a famous name, you can get a seat at a good table at a restaurant, you get a front of the line, you get all the advantages of fame.
right.
But the disadvantages are when you have a famous face because you can't control it. You can't go out. I mean, literally, last week, Michelle and I had lunch with our friend, with Alan Alda and his wife.
Wow.
And Alan's my mentor. He taught me how to write.
Oh, I
Uh,
didn't know
yeah, so we're sitting there, we're having lunch.
that.
It was a beautiful day, but people just kept stopping by the table, and it was nice, and it made Alan feel good, it made Arlene feel good, and it was very nice, but it did harken back to the days where like I I couldn't go to the park and play catch with my dad. It just
Of
wasn't
course.
possible. So you give up a lot. You give up a
Yeah.
lot, and the world did become smaller. And my parents were very conscious of scandal,
Ah.
so they didn't go to parties.
Mhm.
And my mother always said to me, never take a picture with someone you don't know. Because what used to happen was there'd be these big Hollywood parties, and of course there'd be some sleazy hanger-oner that would worm his way in. And then when the scandal broke, pictures would, surface of this guy with their friends. And so my parents never did that. They were like, we have this small group of friends. We're very
Mhm.
tight. We do everything. It was like, remember in Goodfellas, where they said we
Yeah,
did everything?
sure.
That was our life. So like Gene Wilder, Dom DeLuise, uh, we'd go to I don't know if we ever talked about this. Did we ever talk about Julianne Griffin?
No.
Okay, Merv Griffin's ex-wife Julianne. She had a house up in the hills, in the Hollywood Hills above L.A. And on Sunday, if you were famous between 1975 and 1985, that's where you played tennis.
Ah, okay.
So it was this little fortress of a place where everybody could just be together and hang out, and no pressure and no press. But that was my world, was Sundays at Julianne's. So like me and David DeLuise would be playing $6 Million Man on the lawn, and on the tennis court was the $6 Million Man.
Oh, Lee Majors is actually playing.
Yes, Lee Majors and Farrah Fawcett.
Oh,
Uh,
that's interesting.
so all these famous people were there, but they were. This was not a time when you flaunted your fame. This is when you sought privacy. So yeah, that was my world.
It's interesting. There was really recently an interview with Ben Affleck, and I don't watch it, but I saw a clip. And these young guys who's on these podcasts, it was in the last 6 months, and they said, "Oh man," they were talking about how wanting to be rich and famous. He goes, "Just try to be rich." That's what
Right.
he said to them. He goes, "Don't try to be famous." And like, cause him, it's been a cautionary tale for others. Like you go through difficult things, and every struggle in your life, and you're famous today, it's everywhere. It's on TikTok, it's on Twitter, it's on,
Yeah.
Instagram. People have video of you having lunch. You say one bad word. And so when you look at Blazing Saddles, I mean, it's sort of like the question of SNL, the early SNL, they couldn't air that today. Do you think
Yeah.
Blazing Saddles could be done in some way today or no?
You know what? I Here's the thing about cancel culture is cancel culture only feeds off cowardice. You can do it. You just need to be able to stand up to it and just say like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna apologize. I'm not gonna cower. Uh, this is what I'm gonna do. I mean, we saw Dave Chappelle did it. Uh, but, Ben Stiller, I think, recently said, I will never apologize for Tropic Thunder. It's a funny movie, and I'm proud I did it. Because you do see a lot of celebrities now cowering retroactively.
Mhm.
Like, oh, if I had to do again, I would have never played that part, or I never would have made that movie. And if you feel legitimately bad about it, that's one thing. But most of them are just doing what their PR people tell them to do. So I think you could totally make Blazing Saddles. South Park does it every week.
That's a great point. South Park does things that are really in the same vein. That's interesting. That's an
Yeah,
excellent point.
they do it. Family Guy does it. Archer does it. So there are still people with real courage, because I mean, this is the thing, Dino, and you and I know this. We need to laugh, and the darker the times, the more important the laughter is. I mean, it's literally a neurochemical necessity. It's like food and oxygen. If you don't laugh, you sink into depression.
Right.
Uh, I heard this story from John Cleese about during the Bosnian War. The people in Sarajevo, they would huddle in the underground parking structures, the homemade bomb shelters, and they
Mhm.
would screen Monty Python movies. And they needed that.
Wow.
They needed that more important, because if you just embrace the chaos, the sadness that's going on in the world right now, you'll never get out of bed. You'll wither and die.
That's a good point. And, it brings me to the producers. The movie is obviously famously the springtime for Hitler and the Hitler characters there. And that I know that your father got some flack for having Hitler in it. But how important was it for him to have people laugh at Hitler all the time? Because I think we had this discussion in the past.
Yeah, the thing about my dad is he's a student of whatever he mocks.
Mm-hmm.
So he understood, as a combat veteran in World War II, the importance of Nazi propaganda. He understood what Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will meant. All the Nazi architecture, the columns, the flags. Everything was about power. Everything was about instilling fear. The SS Death's Head, the skull and crossbones on their caps, was meant to inspire fear. They had
Right.
SS divisions, you know, the that had Nordic names. Everything was just about strength and power. And my dad's like, I'm just gonna make fun of you assholes, and I'm gonna take the air out of the balloon. And he did. And the fact that people said, "Oh no, we can't make fun of him," he's like, "That's exactly what we need to do," because my dad's also a student of comedy, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what Chaplin tried to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember in the
Sure.
movie Chaplin? There's a wonderful scene in it where Robert Downey Jr. he's watching Hitler's speeches, and he says, "I know you, right? Like you don't scare me. I know what you are. You're an entertainer. Well, so am I."
That's very interesting. I also thought there was something about you that was interesting in the documentary because you're interviewed a great deal, obviously. You said when your dad was writing the producer's musical, which is much later in life, like the 90s or something like that, you saw the Mel Brooks that your mom saw. You saw the Mel Brooks everyone else because you watch him creating something. And I thought that was very interesting. So could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. He, when I was little, he was at his height.
Right.
But I was too little to understand what that meant. I became aware, like a teenager, when his movie career started to go into decline. When the movies weren't doing as well, and the critics started dogpiling him, and I saw a man who was trying to get back to the early movie era. But that's what it was about. Like when he would talk about writing scripts for movies, it was more about sort of what he thought would be successful, what would hit, what the kids would like, blah blah blah. And then when he started writing the producers, I saw a whole other man. I saw a guy who did not care what anyone else thought. He was so
Hmm.
proud of himself. I don't know if it's this. I don't think this made it into the documentary, but we went on vacation, uh, and while we were at the beach or whatever, he was on the deck of his room writing, just writing on the yellow legal pad. And I remember we came back from the beach, and he runs in, says to my mom, "Honey, listen to this." And he had written the lyrics for "I Used to Be the King," the Bialystok
Oh,
song,
right.
and he's singing his rhymes and his beats, and he was so proud of himself. And I was like,
Right.
oh, this is the guy my mom used to tell me about,
Hmm.
where the world could go to hell. He knows it's good.
That must have been an amazing time. And it's still the producers to this day, as they note in the documentary, the most Tony Awards ever. The one, I think I met your dad once because of you when we were working on something at the apartment. And I think he was working with his writing partner on Young Frankenstein, the music.
Yes.
And the one, and I thought like, I was like, oh my God. And once or twice I'd called you when you were back in LA and your dad picked up the phone. And it was fun chatting with him. I'm like, okay, Mr. Brooks, it's such an honor to talk to you. We would talk for a while. I'm like, I got to talk to Max at some point, but I'm like, whatever. Like, it was very, and he was just funny. Like, it was such, and the first time I was more like awestruck. Then later it's like, he just likes to talk. I'm like, this is a nice guy. I like this guy. Like, he was sort of like Robin Williams. When Hen was in the Broadway play with Robin Williams, when I met Robin Williams, I'm like, oh my God. And within 1 minute, we were just two comedians talking. He goes, where do you perform at? And I was talking because I was at that time a full-time comic. And I'm like, well, you should come to the Strip. And he's like, you think they'll put me on? I'm like, you're Robin Williams. Like, he goes, I don't know the owners though. He goes, but I'll put a word in. I'm like, I'm talking to Robin Williams. Like, I'll put a word in, at the comic strip. But it's funny how certain people, if you're in the world of comedy, you speak a similar language. So everything goes away and you just start talking about through that language. So I always thought that was amazing, Rob, especially your dad chatting with him. So, I mean, how does your dad look at comedy today? I mean, it's really, you have these people, they're making 1 minute Instagram or, YouTube stuff, and especially TikTok, having millions of followers. And they go on the road and it's no longer make a film or a TV show. It's on your own terms for good or for bad.
Yeah. It's weird. It's a complete flipping of the business model.
Right.
Like, my manager, Tim Sarkis, who manages a bunch of comedians, he was telling me, he said, back in the day, the goal was you go on the road to build a fan base so you can get a sitcom. And then the sitcom goes into syndication, and then you're golden. And then the sitcom, the reruns feed you. Now it's completely reversed. There's no more reruns. I mean, there is, but there's no more residuals.
Right.
So the reason to get a sitcom now is to build a fan base, to get more people showing up to your club dates. The tours is where I guess it's the same in the music business now too. It's the same thing where you put out an album only to generate fans to come to your concert dates. But it's a weird, I mean, it reminds me of when I studied Karl Marx, when Marx said that when you're just working, when you're the proletariat, it doesn't matter what your wages are. If your money is only dependent on how much you work, if you're trading your time and your life for money, then you're still a wage slave. And that's where comedians and musicians are now, where you still have to go on the road. Doesn't matter how much you make. If Jim Gaffigan accidentally falls down a flight of stairs and can't go on the road, his family does not eat. It's literally that simple.
It's true, because he tours big theaters and that's his primary income now. It's no longer TV or film, and there's no residuals from the Gaffigan show that he did with his wife. That was sort of like a reality show. Those things, there's no ancillary markets. There's no secondary markets, those things. It's one and done. And it's a big thing. Well, look, again, the documentary is called Mel Brooks, the 99-year-old man, which is a play on the 2,000-year-old man with Carl Reiner. And, what a history. And I don't know if your dad will remember me, but please tell him hello if he does remember me. And I really hope that people check it out. And how are you going to celebrate his 100th birthday? Do you have any plans, or is it jinx? You don't talk about things in advance?
Oh, my dad, he does not do birthdays. He's very much like I mean, we do a little thing, but he's very much like, don't let the angel of death know I'm still around.
That's very funny.
Yeah, he's very much has this idea that the angel of death is just overworked and has old 1930 stacks of paper, and is doing whatever that machine was that they did in the 30s. And if he hears "Happy Birthday" too loud, he goes, "Oh, I forgot him."
Right, that's that guy. Oh, that's very fun. Does he follow politics? Does he follow the world? He doesn't talk about politics much, at least not publicly. But does he follow?
He does, and the funny thing is, he's way more in touch with how politics works than any of the pundits, because he's a man of the people. He grew up in poverty, and when he was in the army, the army used to be a chance for all people to mix. So he knows his countrymen. Whereas when I turn on, I turn on any of the cable news networks, these are all highly educated people who lived in a bubble, whose parents were highly educated from a bubble, whose grandparents probably went to the same universities. Whereas my dad, back in 2015, he saw Trump. He's like, oh, that guy's going to win.
Wow.
Yeah, he knew because he knows America and he also knows entertainment and he knows populism and he saw Hitler and he saw Trump and he was like, oh, yeah, that guy's going to win.
It's like Robert Downey in Chaplin saying, I know that guy, because there was a performer quality to Trump in 2015, more so than now. He's old. He's a mess now. He's like,
no, he's hanging on. But in 2015, he came out of nowhere with a popular message speaking right over the heads of the intelligentsia to people who felt like they had been left behind and ignored and forgotten and were really in pain. Just like Germans in the 30s, just like Italians in the 20s. He got it. He got it. And if we don't understand that, you know, I mean, I do all these political action groups here in LA, and somebody asked me once, they were like, who do you think we should run, for president? I said, basically anybody who's not popular in this room. Anybody who this room likes has no idea what country they're living in.
That's an excellent point. Look, it's a challenging time, and your father's seen a lot. Again, the documentaries, Mel Brooks, a 99-year-old man. Max, I want to thank you so much. Please say hello to your wife and your son. And I look forward, hopefully, to see you in New York next time in New York, or if we go to LA for some reason, we'll let you know.
Yeah, I'd love to see you guys again. To those of you who don't know our relationship back in the day, Dean was head researcher at SNL, and just one of the funniest guys I know. And so it's always good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you as well. Take